precipitation means it's gonna be wet.
Okay.
And wacky weather, what you doing? Can you tell me what's a brewing? Will it rain? Will it shine? Etc.
Okay.
So that was great. I remember those songs.
Hi, I'm Ryan. I'm a science teacher.
I'm Cheryl, and I slept through science.
Each episode will tackle a science question you may have learned in school, but can't quite remember or fully explain.
And I'll take the risk of asking the dumb questions so that we can all understand the science we slept through.
The bell has rung. Let's get started. Welcome to lesson 49. We are in our holiday unit. Cheryl, are you still enjoying the holiday time?
I totally am. I love warmth and I love summer. And then also I love the Christmas season so much. So it's got to be one or the other. Anything in between or winter without Christmas, like in Narnia, that's awful. But,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. What are you curious about this week?
Well, thinking about winter, actually, the winter aspect of the holiday season, the best part obviously is the snow, because otherwise it's just like cold, and like you and I live in the Seattle area, so just like cold and wet and really short days.
Yeah.
But sometimes we get snow. Sometimes it feels like we're very lucky when we get snow, and then other times it feels like it's a bit of a curse, and it doesn't go away with all of our hilly area and no snow plows and drivers who don't know how to drive in the snow. So,
Yeah.
Depends on how it all shakes out. But I was thinking about snow, and I realized I don't totally understand how snow works. And like, I know it's like rain that gets cold, but then if it's rain that gets cold, then isn't that just like tiny ice cubes?
Okay.
And I know that snowflakes are not tiny ice cubes, but I can't tell you why they are not tiny ice cubes.
So why is snow not tiny ice cubes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I think that's an excellent question. Let's start with the pre-assessment, looking at what you actually said initially. You said that snow is rain that gets cold.
Yeah, kind of.
Can you tell me a little bit more about sort of the sequence or timeline that you think would happen for snow to be made?
Yeah, this is reminding me, I know we did like a weather unit when I was in 4th grade that did include songs, by the way.
Of course.
Including precipitation means it's gonna be wet.
Okay.
And wacky weather, what you doing? Can you tell me what's a brewing? Will it rain? Will it shine? Etc. So that was, I remember those songs. And then I feel like there's something about snow where it's like it would be rain, except for it's too cold for it to be rain.
Okay.
And then does it get like looped back up and then becomes a snow? Something's happening up there in the clouds.
So it's like happening up in the clouds. That's a good start.
It's happening up in the clouds. It's something that if it were a warmer day, it would be rain.
Okay.
And then instead of being rain, it's really cold, and maybe it like cycles around a little bit before it comes down.
What do you mean cycles
know.
around?
I don't know. I feel like I remember something about, here's what I don't know is, does it come out of the cloud in the form of a raindrop and then does a little extra loop through the cycle and becomes a snowflake? Are raindrops becoming snowflakes?
Okay. And this is a question that you don't know.
I don't know.
Okay.
Or is it that the conditions are cold, so raindrops aren't coming out, and instead snowflakes are being formed and then they fall?
Okay.
I don't know.
So if you had to guess, Which one would
Oh
you
gosh.
guess?
Well, I think that raindrops aren't coming out because I think that if raindrops were coming out, it would be tiny ice cubes
Okay.
because it
Why?
comes out of the cloud and then it
Uh-huh.
gets frozen
Okay.
and then it's like this little tiny ice cube. And
Okay.
is that what hail is?
Okay. So now we're bringing
Because
in hail.
hail is something else.
Okay.
Is hail frozen rain? And then if hail's frozen rain, then is the whole cloud getting frozen? And then it develops tiny snowflakes inside of this cold cloud, and then those snowflakes fall.
And when you say, is the whole cloud getting frozen, what do you mean?
The whole cloud before it releases any raindrops. I might also be revealing that I don't totally know how clouds release raindrops.
Okay.
Does it get too full? Oh no. I'm feeling extra embarrassed about this one. So like if the cloud is just in cold conditions, then the innards of the cloud get
Uh-huh.
so frozen that they become a snowflake and then they fall down.
Okay. And that's the one that you think is more likely.
Yes.
She says with very little confidence.
Yeah, because I'm realizing how much I don't know about any form of precipitation. I know it
Okay.
means it's going to be wet. That's what I remember from my fourth
Okay.
grade
Good.
unit. Yep.
Sounds like maybe we need to have a weather unit at some point in the future.
Ooh, that would be fun. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll see. We'll write it down to note for sometime in the future. Okay. One more question for you then. Separate from why is it not an ice cube, like a little tiny frozen ice cube? We know that snow isn't. What do you think might make snow the shape that it is?
Okay, I have a guess, and I'm
Okay.
embarrassed of my guess, but I'm gonna be brave.
Good.
So I know that when water freezes, it expands.
Okay.
So I wonder if it's a tiny water droplet that gets frozen and grows outward like
Okay.
this.
Okay. And what do
It's
you
a
mean by
little, and then it goes
grows?
as it freezes, it expands.
Uh-huh.
Kind of like when you see in your freezer something that's like freezer burnt and it
Okay.
has like little like it's not like smooth like an ice cube. It looks
Mm-hmm.
all white instead
Mm-hmm.
of clear
Mm-hmm.
and has little like almost shards, but not shards.
Okay.
That is more similar to a snowflake than an ice cube is. So is
Okay.
it similar to what that's doing where it's expanding?
And everyone who is just listening to the podcast and not watching on YouTube, there are hand motions that are going along with this that Cheryl is making. That she's doing things with her fingers and making
Uh-huh.
shapes and expanding outward. So
Yes.
you want to check that out if you have an opportunity.
Oh my gosh, I know nothing. I thought I knew some things. I don't know a single thing.
I know it doesn't feel like you know anything, Cheryl, but you actually have a lot here, as you usually do.
Okay, good.
I
I
don't-
did also remember more of the Wacky Weather song there's a line I think
oh,
you would like a lot. It
please.
goes, "Who can tell me what's in store? Is that what a weather map is for?"
Oh.
I don't know what a weather map is, but now
I
that
mean,
song is stuck in my head.
if you watch the weather on the news, those are forms of weather maps.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah,
Great.
there's lots of different forms of weather maps.
That wacky weather.
That wacky weather. All right. I'm going to jump around quite a bit in what you talked about, but I think we can make it all connect, actually, believe it or not.
Okay.
First of all, what you said was, are raindrops becoming snowflakes, or does it form first and then it snows?
Yeah.
Right? And you thought that maybe it does actually form first. That was your guess.
Yes.
And that is correct.
Yes.
Clouds are made of water. I'm guessing you know that,
Yes, I do know that part.
right?
Yep. Mhm.
And the higher up you go in general, the colder the temperatures get. And when you get up to where clouds are, that's partly why clouds can form at all, is because it's cold enough for the water that's in the air to condense and to condense
Mm.
into liquid. And they're little tiny drops of liquid that make up clouds. And they're so tiny that they're able to stay aloft out in the air. But if it's cold enough, you can get some of those to actually freeze. And I'm not going to go into all the details, but you can have super cooled water where usually when you go below 0 degrees Celsius or 32 degrees Fahrenheit, water will freeze. But under certain conditions, you can actually get water to be lower than that temperature and still be a liquid. And that can happen sometimes in clouds. And then if there's just enough where it just, there's a little bit of dust or something else that gets it to kind of make that transition and to start to freeze, then that little tiny drop can actually freeze. And then it may connect to another piece of water and cause it to freeze, and then another one and cause it to freeze. And it starts to grow. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Eventually, whatever that thing is, that kind of frozen water that's all kind of connected and grown around itself, is heavy enough that it can't stay in the air anymore. And then it starts to fall towards the ground. And as it does that, it's falling through the cloud, it's falling through the air. And as long as all the temperatures are right and everything, it can continue to grab little bits of water from the air. And this is obviously oversimplified, but that is snow.
Oh,
You didn't think that was going
okay.
to be snow.
Well, then I thought my guess was going to be that all of that happens. And then if it's above freezing, when it hits like where we are,
Mm-hmm.
then they melt and then it's raindrops.
Well, that can happen also.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
That does happen sometimes. Yeah. It depends on. Snow is complicated. You grew up in the Pacific Northwest like I did. And up until, I don't know, maybe 5 years ago, maybe 7, they could not predict snow to save their life. If they said, you could kind of count that if they said it was going to snow, that it wasn't. And if they didn't think it was going to snow, that it would. Because it's, especially in this area, because of our geography, and we got water and lakes and Puget Sound and mountains and hills and all sorts of stuff, it's very difficult to predict. They've gotten way better recently, and they're a lot more reliable. I think they've just created better computer models that can do a better job of doing a lot of those things, but it's complicated. So there's multiple ways that things can happen to cause it to snow. But sort of the second thing that you talked about was sort of that shape. And we sort of talked about that, right? Is that the reason that it's not just a frozen ice cube, right? Like it's just a raindrop that freezes, is because of the way it forms, because it's not becoming a raindrop first. And it's like having this little tiny ice crystal that is slowly growing. You talked about it also expanding, because you remembered that when water freezes, it actually expands. And there's a component to that. That's not in and of itself a huge part of that, is the expansion per se, but it is that it's frozen connecting to other things and causing them to freeze.
Okay, that makes sense. So snowflakes are ice crystals?
Yes, they are a bunch of ice crystals that are all connected to each other.
Oh, and that's what makes that shape?
That is, yes, ultimately what makes all the different really cool shapes. Yes.
So then the things in my freezer, when something is freezer burnt, are those ice crystals?
They are forms of ice crystals, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. All right.
Cool.
Then you were wondering, well, what about if it were to like be a little bit warmer, would it be rain? And it can be.
Okay.
And there's a couple of things that can happen. You can have it start as snow, and then it can fall and it can warm up on its way down and then be rain, which we talked about. But you can also have it start, and then as it falls through warm air and starts to melt. and then falls through colder air as it gets closer to the surface of the earth, and it will refreeze. And that is sleet.
Oh, okay.
And we get sleet, not all the time, but we get sleet here. They're also called ice pellets. They look like little tiny, just almost circles of, it's the color of snow, but it's like round, spherical.
Yeah.
Right?
And is that different than hail?
And then there's hail. Yes, that's the next thing, which you also talked about. You were trying to figure out what that means, but you also talked about things being cycled around.
Yeah.
And remember, I pushed you a little bit on that. I wanted to get more information because what hail will do is it'll start, and hail is usually associated with thunderstorms where there's huge amounts of wind, and especially in the clouds and in the upper part of the atmosphere. And what will happen is, whether it starts kind of like a snow crystal or it starts like a sleet or something like that, there's enough wind to blow it back up into the cloud, and it keeps gathering more material. And then it starts to fall, and then it blows back up and gathers more material, and falls back down and blows back up and gathers more material. And that's why hail can be so much larger.
Yeah, because it can be like huge. You see those videos of it like damaging cars or
Yep, it can be,
killing
golf ball
animals or
sized or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's not as common, but it can happen. And that's why, is because it actually just keeps staying in that area where it can continue to accumulate more and more and more water that freezes to it. And so it actually gets larger and larger and larger. And so the stronger the winds, the larger it can get before it would fall to the earth.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So snow isn't doing that, but hail is.
Hail is.
Doing that.
And
Okay.
sleet is the closest thing to what you initially were talking about, which is a raindrop, can be, but freezing and being an ice cube.
Yeah. So that's what sleet is. Okay.
Sleet is the closest to that of all of the things that are happening. Yeah. Where it's kind of just like a frozen ice cube.
And snow is pretty much a frozen cloud.
Tell me more about what you mean by that.
Because you said it's the little tiny droplets that are in the cloud that are still in water form, but also below normal freezing temperatures. And then something like dust sets it off to freeze, and then it freezes, and they set each other off and fall and like keep freezing things on their way down.
Yes.
So it's a frozen cloud.
That's the connection I'm missing.
The cloud got frozen. It's the little tiny droplets.
But the cloud itself doesn't freeze. It's things that are making up the cloud that freeze.
Oh, okay. Is the cloud not what it's made up of?
It is, but for the cloud to be frozen would imply that the entire thing is one solid object, and it's not. It's all the little tiny, because if that were the case, the whole thing would fall.
Oh, that's true. That'd be horrifying.
Yeah. That would not be so great if you were underneath it.
Yeah.
Does that distinction make sense?
Yes. It feels like a technicality because it depends on how you define a cloud. It's frozen cloud bits.
Yeah, well, because it's not the whole cloud. When you say the frozen cloud, to me that sounds like the whole thing, and it's not the whole thing. So, okay, but maybe it's a technicality.
We're not in English class. It's fine.
I'm pretty sure that I do technicalities in science class more than they do in English class.
That's a good point.
And now it's time for your favorite part of the lesson, the
snow day.
Quiz.
No, it's snow day because it snowed, so we can't go to school.
Yeah, guess what we can do now instead of snow days? We can just use online school.
Oh my gosh, I hate that so much at work now that we don't just get snow days when there's snow days, but they're like, no, you can work from home. You have a job on a computer. I'm like, no, I want to go sledding.
Yeah. All right, but it is quiz time, Cheryl.
Okay, fine.
First question. Where does snow form?
When it is in cloud form inside
Yes,
of the cloud.
in clouds. Very good.
Okay.
How do snowflakes grow or get bigger?
They make each other cold.
Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
One single drop of water gets set off by one piece of dust and makes a little crystal. I'm embellishing your description a little
Go
bit.
for it.
And then that crystal becomes bigger and becomes a really beautiful snowflake. And then that snowflake is all frozen and cold. And then its little water droplet friends around it are influenced by their friends to become cold as well. And they grow into their little crystals and into snowflakes. And then as they fall, they keep making everybody else cold. They're all just a bunch of followers. Nobody has a unique thought.
and they're connected to each other.
And they're connected to each other. Oh, because they're so tiny.
They're so tiny.
Each one becomes
Each
a
little tiny crystal. So when one touches another one, it's not like it says, all right, it's not like tag, and now you're part of the whole thing. It touches it, and then it becomes part of that snowflake. It kind of continues to grow.
Like amoeba tag.
Like amoeba tag. Yes.
There we go.
Exactly.
Okay, everyone knows what that is, so it's fine.
Everybody does. Everyone knows exactly what we're talking about. What are the 3 types of frozen precipitation that we talked about?
Snow, sleet, and hail.
Very good. And finally, what is the difference between hail and sleet?
Sleet is ice cubes. It's little frozen raindrops, pretty much. Or maybe frozen, refrozen snowflakes, potentially. And hail goes around and around and around up in the clouds, keeps getting blown around and growing larger and larger, like a snowman. And that's why it's potentially bigger, is because it keeps gathering. So the more wind, the more hail. But sleet never goes through that process. Yay!
I forgot to do that for all your other answers, so.
Well, thank you.
I remembered for the end. Good for you. Nice job. Nice job.
Thank you.
Well, I guess we do have to, close early for the snow. So you're going to have to go home. So why don't you go ahead and pack up all your stuff and get ready for my closing remarks. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at I Slept Through Science or on Twitter at Slept Science.
If you have dumb science questions like I do, please send them to us. You can email us at isleptthroughscience@gmail.com, or you can even send us a voice memo and we'll play it on the podcast.
Please rate and review our podcast to tell other people what you think about it, subscribe to make sure you don't miss an episode, and share about our podcast on social media.
Thank you to Beth Reed Miller for the artwork. You can check out more of Beth's artwork at Beth Is Something. Okay, great. Thanks. Bye.
The bell doesn't dismiss you. I dismiss you.